Hey everyone, it's me Gamerturk, and as promised, let's have some videos focusing on individual reveals from last week's Sword Art Online Alicization Lycoris reveals. This first one won't be too long, as we'll be focusing on sacred arts, and without playing the exact details, this won't go in too deep aside from the basic functionality of different elements. The background footage is from the latest Dengeki PS Live as well. It shows some basic thermal element attacks and some buffs, though listening to me right now is your main source of information. First off, let's start from the simplest question: what is sacred arts? Well, anyone who has watched the anime or read the light novels obviously know this, but it's basically the magic system in Underworld. In universe, sacred arts require spatial resources to conjure, aka you can't use them if there are no resources around, but from the looks of it, that will not be a bottleneck in Alicization Lycoris, and sacred arts won't be tied to the skill point system either, unlike the sword skills. Also, compared to the main canon, sacred arts have a more RPG-like approach in Alicization Lycoris. Not only they can be used for a variety of offensive and defensive moves, as well as healing, that kind of stuff, they also act as the general buff-debuff skills as well, such as increasing your speed or allowing you to gain aggro, so the non-physical skills you would recognize from the prior SAO games. There are two major differences of sacred arts compared to the prior SAO games though. First off, it's the fact that they are much more integral to the combat. In the previous SAO games, you buffed once every couple minutes and that was pretty much it. However, sacred arts by design is an extension of your active combat capabilities as well. It still does have the buffs and debuffs and the like, but it's also a major offensive and defensive tool, so much so that you can chain attacks and sacred arts together into various combos. You can generate elements on your offhand, unleash a skill with the hand holding a weapon, and follow this up with another attack using the elements stored on your offhand, for example. There are also defensive/counter moves, like creating a mirror to deflect attacks the same way Kirito did against Fanatio back in the tower. All in all, they are much better interwoven into combat than ever before. The second major difference is the variety and classification of sacred arts. As you're probably familiar from the main canon, individual elements do have individual and specific uses, or at the very least, some elements are more effective than the others at doing certain things. For example, luminous elements are used as light sources and for healing related sacred arts. Similarly, Alicization Lycoris has different elements having different properties. The usage of 8 elements, thermal, aerial, aqueous, how do you even pronounce that? Cryogenic, metallic, crystalline, luminous and umbra are not tied to your skill point meter, and by raising their levels you unlock higher level sacred arts and thus become more powerful. And to go into the specific elements, starting with thermal. Thermal element arts tend to focus on longer range attacks and also inflict damage over time effects, probably burning, that's pretty self-explanatory, what else will it be? With cryogenic elements, you will either want to have the enemy directly in front of you or in the near vicinity around you. You can throw straight piercing attacks, utilize area effect attacks around yourself a bit, and use arts to even freeze your enemies, effectively stopping them for a bit. Water elements are generally structured around versatility rather than being the master of a single objective. Aside from attacks, it has various buffs to increase your defensive capabilities and thus reducing damage taken, as well as sacred arts to blow your enemies back in traditional Avatar fashion. Wind elements have a variety of buffs available, probably things that increase your movement speed, attack speed, etc. can be found in this category. It also has protective barrier abilities, obviously not at all oriented at the enemy, but rather about enhancing your own abilities and your nimbleness. Metallic elements are once again focused on you as the player, however the opposite way around compared to the wind elements. The best comparison is probably that the wind element makes you a nimble airbender pacifist that doesn't want to hurt anyone but also doesn't want to get hurt, whereas metallic elements directly make you stronger and overall just has more bluntness oriented effects, like raising your physical strength, creating rocks to block things, and even creating footholds to stabilize yourself in combat. Yep, that's pretty much the case of airbender versus earthbender there. We got crystal elements next. Their description was quite vague, but the translation was they specialize in attacks such as repulsing attacks back to their owner or tracking. Repulsing attacks, that's certainly the mirror block we talked about earlier, but tracking sounds a bit weird. I don't know what to make of that at the moment. Last but not least, we got luminous and umbra elements, and as expected from them, well, luminous elements are used for healing as well as blinding enemies to reduce their accuracy, whereas umbra elements are used to weaken your enemies overall, slowing them down and inflicting confusion. So these two are the elements you will use once you reach a difficulty spike and realize surviving is more important than dealing actual damage. But yeah, that's all I got for you in regards to sacred arts and the individual elements. Naturally, we'll get a whole lot more specifics once the game releases in regards to the exact capabilities of each element, but for now, this should give you a good overview on what to expect. Speaking of expectations, Lens Squad expects your attention. Go check it out on my Teespring store. Patrons and channel members get a $5 off discount code on their respective feed. As always though, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay cool.